Hello everybody. So this video is all about the self. Specifically, we're going to differentiate between the self-concept and self-awareness. And we're going to talk a little bit about the development of an understanding of the self and the uniqueness of understanding or having an understanding of the self. So first, the self generally refers to both the self-concept and self-awareness. The self-concept you can kind of think like, well, you can kind of think of as our understanding of ourselves, all the information we have about us, what abilities we have, what goals we have, our history, everything about what we look like, everything about us is the self-concept. It is what we know about ourselves. Self-awareness is the act of knowing. So a person without self-awareness probably wouldn't have an understanding of them. They probably wouldn't have an idea of what features they have. If you were to ask them, describe yourself, they probably wouldn't be able to do it because they aren't able to be aware of their self. Now, self-awareness, the self-concept develops over time. When you after you become self-aware, you start learning things about yourself, and as you grow older, your self-concept becomes more involved. It becomes more complex. And at the earliest stages of life, when we're very young, and you ask a person, you ask a child to ask you to tell you about them, they're going to tell you very concrete things. I'm a boy. I'm such and such age. I enjoy playing with such and such toy. I enjoy going to school. It's whatever. So, but very concrete things. All right, things that are fairly visible. But as you get older, the things that we use to describe ourselves, the information about our self-concept that we provide to people when asked about ourselves becomes more abstract. It becomes more psychological. So if you were asked about yourself, you would probably provide traits. I'm an ambitious individual. I'm an intelligent individual. I'm an outgoing individual. So you're describing yourself in more abstract traits. Whereas again, when you're younger, they're very concrete. Now, self-awareness again is that act of knowing ourselves, and self-awareness is not unique to humans. And in fact, we're not born self-aware. Indeed, we don't even develop, depending on how you define self-awareness. So you can define self-awareness in the way that seems to be the dominant way is being able to recognize the self. So, put a mirror up, can you recognize that you are you in the mirror? So one prominent test of this is the red dot test. So what happens is they put a dot, for infants, typically on the nose, of rouge. That's why it's called the red dot test. Put a little dot of rouge on their nose, and they set a mirror up, and then they look at how the infant responds. If the infant tries to remove the red dot after seeing themselves in the mirror, that's an indication of them being self-aware. They recognize their own features, and they recognize that something's there that shouldn't be. So that's an indication of self-awareness, and that doesn't develop until around 15 to 20 months of age. I've seen somebody split the difference and call it 18 months, but around 15 to 20 months is when that develops. So we're not born self-aware. It develops. And we're not the only animal that is self-aware. So chimpanzees, put a dot right here, put them in front of a mirror, they try to take the dot off. Dolphins, you put a dot on their chest and allow them to see themselves in a mirror, they will try to brush the red dot off. So, there are other animals, chimpanzees, elephants, dolphins, that also demonstrate signs of self-awareness using the red dot test, the same way that humans do. But again, humans don't develop that until, if we split the difference, 18 months, but 15 to 20 months. All right, and that is it for this video. So we've talked a little bit, we've defined what the self-concept is. It's basically everything you know about you. Now, one additional comment I will make about that is the self-concept is big. All right, literally includes all the information you have about you, including specific memories of instances that you can use as evidence to support your notion that you possess such and such traits. So if you think you're ambitious, then you're going to have memories of when you behaved ambitiously. So, when somebody asks, are you ambitious? And you say, yeah or no, you can pull up memories to support that. So it includes a lot of information, but we don't use all of that information all the time. In fact, we tend to only use a subset of the self at any one point. And what subset or what active self we're currently using depends largely on the situation or what we're thinking about. So if we're locked in our own heads, we're kind of ignoring the situation around us. If you're thinking about your role as a parent, all right, then when you come to and you start, I'm not suggesting you were out of it, but when you start paying attention to things around you again, you're probably going to react to things in the way that you would as a parent, because the subset of information of you as a parent is accessible because you've been thinking about it. Now, if you're heavily involved in the situation, and in the situation you play certain roles, then in that situation you're probably going to react to things as you would in that role. And if you were to change situations and not allow the situation to affect you, you would probably continue behaving as you did with that role that had been activated in the previous situation. So what happens, when you're thinking about yourself, in the example of you thinking about yourself as a parent, in the example of the situation activating a role, in all of these situations, what you're thinking about activates a subset of your overall self-concept, and we call that the active self, or the working self-concept. All right, that's the active self, and it's only a subset of all the information in the self-concept, but it's what you use to determine how to behave, how to react, and basically what to do. So the self-concept is everything we know about ourselves, but we're only using a certain portion of it at any one time. And then self-awareness is the act of knowing ourselves, our ability to reflect on what we do, how we behave, what we're like, how we're likely to behave, etc. So we've defined the self, we've reviewed the self and the self-concept, we've reviewed how it develops. It develops from being more concrete to more abstract when it begins around 15 to 20 months. That's what we've covered in this video. If you have any questions, please send them my way. Other than that, have a great week.